Hello friends. This is Phoenix. What if? How are you all? So in this video, we will see what if Naruto had the eyes of good and evil. But before we start, if you want more amazing stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Also, if possible, share this video with your friends. Now without wasting any more time, let's begin the story. I sat on the windowsill, feeling the cold window pressing on my back. It was raining outside, making the sound of our robbery much easier. The pigs aren't going to arrive anytime soon. I looked towards my colleges who were loading bags full of dust. Our boss, the human, had needed a lot of dust, for reasons unknown to us. As long as it helps us get rid of humans, then it's fine. A sound was heard in the back of the shop, the storage room. The idiots in front of me must have stacked the dust stupidly. Oi, Luke, check the storage room. You probably stacked the dust wrong. Go fix it, I said. Luke walked to the storage room with no complaint. He was always good on my force. I looked to my gun on my left. It was a normal Alaska 47 but loaded with dust, fire dust to be specific, and could form into a katana. I looked towards the newbie of my team. He was a tiger faunus. The kid was ruthless. Every prisoner we had this week, and he had feasted on the throat of the prisoner. Lucifer, how much dust is there to collect? I asked. We didn't have much time as the evacuation airship was going to arrive in 10 minutes. The kid looked at me and answered. There's about 4 boxes more left to pack, he answered. That was good, we could get out without a trace. I looked around and didn't see Luke come back the storage room. What could be keeping him? I got off the windowsill and took my gun with me. We could somehow have an intruder. As I slowly walked towards the door that held the backroom storage of dust, I could feel my heart start beating faster and faster. I didn't know why. I was just checking on Luke, right? Why was worrying? Why were my instincts telling me to run? Something wasn't right. I approached the door quietly and turned the doorknob slowly, my finger on the trigger of my rifle. I quickly swung the door open to see the boxes. I had Luke's steak been knocked over with him in the pile of dust. He was sleeping with fear splattered on his face. Foam was spewing out his mouth like a river. Guys, Luke is down. I yelled to subordinates. The newbie and another one came rushing in. What do you? They stopped and looked at the scene. I didn't see Greg come with them. This was bad. Guys, where is Greg? I screamed, realizing that leaving each other alone is a bad idea. I ran past them in worry and came to another knocked out college in the main shop. Jeffrey was lying on the cold, wet road outside with shattered glass beneath him. The rainstorm covered the sound of the glass being broken. My bare instincts screamed at me to look behind myself, only to see gunfire from the inside of the shop. I had ran quickly to the shop and roared at my subordinate who was firing bullets like the 4th of July. Calm down, Terry. I roared in authority. He stopped and looked around and ran towards me. BB boss. We gotta go. Fuck the mission. There's a demon. Terry screamed in fear and tried to run past his boss before getting grabbed by the shoulders and coldly stared at in the eyes. We are not running, I said with anger. Run? Where would we run? To our boss Torchwick and get shot? No thanks. Slowly I saw my teammate's face scrunch up in fear. I turn my head and see what has been scaring my team. It was a dark figure. It looked like a teenager's height. The only thing he could see about this mysterious person that was his red eyes that held 2 tomo each. The rain hid him well considering that Faunus could see near perfect vision in the dark, but this kid was only visible by the eyes. Huh. I was believing you were going to run, said the voice. He sounded bored and tired. This had to be a joke. A kid scaring the living lights out of his subordinates? Hope the kid is human. I decided to kill the boy. HMPH, you cocky little shit. I am going to teach you who the real demon is around here. I stare into his eyes and let my teammate run off. The thunder in the skies signaled us to fight. I charged at him with my changing AK into its katana form. The red-eyed figure ran towards me and we swung at each other with our swords, which made sparks, ones that made a small amount of light before dying out. I could see better than this weak human, so going for a slash aimed for his stomach, that would lead him to be injured or even better die. But the red-eyed figure brought up his sword and blocked the slash. It pushed him a bit before he jumped up and roundhoused me. I tumble onto a curb of the street. Some of the broken glass had gotten under my skin. I would clean it later. The figure comes running after me and he jumps up ready to stab me in the chest. I quickly roll away and switch to my gun form. The magazine was still loaded, so I fire dust bullets. Eat lead motherfucker. I roar and the bullets beautifully make themselves at home in the figure's body. It stops and collapses to the wet floor, blood pouring out pretty quickly. I pick myself up and start walking away. The cops would be here anytime soon with the gunfire, so he had to go. The figure stared on at the unconscious man on the side curb. He was murmuring about escaping from the cops before they arrived. Looks like his job was almost done. All he had to do is grab all the unconscious men and tie them up on a street lamp and then head home. 5 minutes later, looking up at his work, sleeping White Fang members, he had slowly walked away. The thunder struck again and revealed his look. The teen had wore a black cloak with a hood that went to his ankles. Underneath it he wore a high-collared black shirt with orange lines running from his shoulders, down the sleeves and all the way to the end of the shirt. His pants were colored dark blue and bandages wrapped around his hands. His head had black spiky hair, his eyes now not red but blue that could be considered on par with sapphires. On his cheeks were 3 black lines resembling whiskers. This was Naruto Uchiha, a boy of a dark past. He walked away from the shop. The dock wasn't far from the shop. The black-haired boy walked into an alleyway, the shortcut to 27th Street. Naruto walked out of the alley and walked down the dark street. He felt his pants vibrate and saw on his scroll that he was getting a call. He looked to see who was calling and saw it was Tucson. He answered and put his scroll to his ear. "Hello?" he asked. "Hey kid. How was tonight? Got any bad guys?" The man on the other side of the phone asked. This was Tucson, the owner of Tucson's book trade. Naruto replied, "Yeah, I will be home soon anyway and want some rest. I got to get up early to work for the store, don't I?" asked Naruto with a small smile. The other side of the phone stayed quiet, showing that he got reminded of Naruto's job or something was up. Tucson answered next. "Yeah. Hey look kid. I need to talk to you when you get back, so I will see you soon." And just like that Tucson hung up, leaving a confused Naruto, but he shook his head. He would see what Tucson wanted later. As he turned the finally corner onto 27th Street, he walked to the front of a shop that said Tucson's book trade. Naruto stood in the rain for a few moments, unlocking the door and walked in. He was met with the sight of Tucson, who wore a short-sleeved beige shirt with black accents and a zipper on it, pulled down to a point below his chest. Beneath this, he wore a white undershirt. His hair was cleanly cut, and he had noticeable sideburns, along with hairy, muscular arms. He was holding out a towel towards Naruto. "Dry off, then we will talk," said Tucson and walked to the back of his shop. Naruto dried himself off and walked to the back of the shop. He was met with the sight of luggage. This made his wonder, where was Tucson going? Tucson caught on with his line of thought. "All right Naruto, I am going to be straight with you. I am moving to Vacuo. I am leaving tonight because I know the White Fang are going to get on my ass quicker than a bullet. Torchwick doesn't fuck around, so I gotta go tonight. That is why I am leaving Tucson's book trade shop to you," confessed Tucson. Naruto stayed silent and then slowly began to nod. He understood Tucson had to go soon. He assumed the White Fang didn't like loose ties, so it was understandable that he had to go. Just before Tucson was about to say something, Naruto had to ask. "All right, I understand this, but I want a small favor out of you. Tell me what you know about the White Fang. I need to know so I can stop the next hit on someone or the next robbery," asked Naruto. He had gotten small intel here and there from the Puma Faunus. The man already knew that the kid would want more intel. "I left a sheet on your bed upstairs telling you of all the next things that are happening. I didn't have much to say, but it should be enough," said Tucson and started to head for the door with his bags as the taxi arrived. He looked at Naruto and said his goodbye. "All right kid, I only got to know you for about 2 years, but that is enough to let me say. Look after the shop, yeah? I want to see Tucson's book trade shop advertised on the newspapers," he said. Naruto looked towards him and smiled. "Yeah, expect some money soon. Thanks for everything Tucson. I will look after the shop," said Naruto and was about to head to his bed upstairs before one last sentence with Tucson. "Oh yeah old man, don't forget the saying, home to every book under the sun," said Naruto and left for bed. Tucson smiled and loaded his bags into a taxi before thinking to himself. Every book under the sun, and got into the taxi. Morning, Vale. Naruto opened his eyes slowly, to see his room's roof before looking around. It was a simple room, with a desk, a window, a closet that sat next to the window and a bathroom. He didn't own a bed frame, so he just slept with a mattress on the floor. He pulled himself off his bed and got up. He had lean muscles that made many girls who saw him shirtless walk to him and ask for his number, but he always said he had to go and left usually. He went to his closet and grabbed another pair of his clothes last night, but this time without the cloak. He opened his blinds and saw boats coming towards the docks. He was on the 4th floor so he could see the docks. He stuck his head out his window and took a big breath. The fresh smell in the air made him enjoy the mornings. He pulled his head back and left his room, taking his katana with him to go to the kitchen on the 2nd floor. It was down a flight of stairs, so he slid down the bar to go faster. As he slid down, he reached the 3rd floor and saw his neighbor. She was a simple dog faunus and wore her PJs. "Oh hey Naruto, did you say goodbye to Tucson last night?" she asked as she saw Naruto slide past. "Yeah, now I own the store, so I expect rent in a week," said Naruto as he reached the 2nd floor. Kitchen. Naruto walked into the apartment's shared kitchen and turned on the light. He was going to make this quick. He grabbed some bread out of the bread box that was next to the toaster. He stuck 2 pieces in it and pushed down on the toaster. While the bread was cooking, he had walked over to the fridge and grabbed the butter. He stood there waiting to spread the butter on his bread that was still cooking. His scroll in his pocket made a sound and revealed a notification from a new number. It was a voicemail. His face turned into curiosity and he slid the message across the screen to play it. "Hello, you may not know who I am, but I know who you are," said the voice. It was of a man. It sounded familiar. "This might come out strange, but I would like you to meet me in the front yard of Beacon Academy today, as soon as you can would be nice. Oh, and so you don't think I am some stranger. I know that Tucson left for Vacuo last night. Thank you." The voicemail ended. The Uchiha thought about the message and wasn't going to bother going, but then thought about the first sentence. "Hello, you may not know who I am, but I know who you are." The voice replayed in his mind. He might as well see this mysterious person. Suddenly the bread came out of the toaster nice and golden. He grabbed the hot bread, spread butter on it, put his butter knife in the sink and head for the downstairs back door. When he got outside, he looked around. It was another alleyway. It had a van at the front and a person smoking with his friend at the end of the alleyway. Naruto walked out the alley and onto the street. He went for a walk around for a few blocks and then ended up on the same shop he stopped the robbery last night. Cops were taking down the sleeping criminals from the lamppost and some news reporters were trying to get a word on the situation. Naruto walked closer to the scene to hear what the reporters were saying. Sir, what do you think of the situation?" asked a reporter with a microphone in the officer's face. "No comment," said the cop, trying to pull the White Fang members into a police car. "Sir, what do you think stopped the criminals getting away?" asked another reporter. The cop looked towards the camera and the reporter. "If I had to be completely honest, I think it was that new vigilante lurking around town," said the cop. This excited the reporters with the news of a vigilante. "Sir, tell us more," screamed reporters. They were climbing on each other to just get info about some vigilante. The cop was able to put the members in the car and got in the driver's seat. He looked towards the cameras and said, "Look, all I know is that 5 members of the White Fang wouldn't just sleep on a lamppost randomly. These crimes that have been stopped have been happening for 2 months now, and some witnesses are saying they saw a man in a black cloak with red eyes. That is all," said the cop, and he rolled up his window, leaving many reporters still chasing after the car, hoping to get more news. Many people who listened to this live had wondered who this new vigilante was. Naruto just smiled to himself and started to walk again. 3 minutes later, as the black-haired teen was walking across another block, he had saw a group of 4 girls walking together, and 2 of them were arguing while the other 2 had just stood out and watched it unfold. "I am telling you, the White Fang don't deserve names like a person," yelled the white-haired girl. The black-haired girl who wore a bow disagreed, however. "That is wrong and you know it," said the bow-wearing girl. Naruto decided to tune out the noise and think about the message he got from the morning. If this person who asked to meet up in front of Beacon was someone important, then if he knew Tucson. The teen walked towards the massive clock tower that was on a cliff, showing it was Beacon. After airship ride, Naruto got off the airship and walked towards the courtyard. He saw people walking around and chatting while others just hung out with their friends. When Naruto took a step on the ground of the airship docks, he was face to face with a drone. It looked at him and made itself known. "Mr. Uchiha," it said in a robotic voice, "could you please follow me? I will lead you to my sender," said the robot and flew towards the massive school. As Naruto followed it, he looked around. It was beautiful, the school, and the massive clock tower made it feel like a place of power and history. The teen stopped looking around, saw he was in front of a man with a cane and a coffee mug. This man standing in front of Naruto just randomly pissed him off. The way he stood, the way he causally looked at him, it was like he was calculating something. Either way he would see what this loser wanted. "Hello, young man," said the white-haired man. He wore shaded glass spectacles and a small, purple, cross-shaped pin on the cowl around his neck. His outfit mainly consists of an unzipped black suit over a buttoned vest and green shirt. He also wears black trouser shoes and long, dark green pants. Naruto just listened. "I can see that you got my message," he said simply before sipping his cup of coffee. The Uchiha stayed silent, knowing that he wanted to say something else. That look he was giving said he was an important person, and important people always think highly of themselves. "Mr. Uchiha, I would only like to talk, not fight," the coffee addict said as if he was reading Naruto's thoughts. "Who the hell is this guy? What does he want with me?" asked Naruto in his head. "Who the hell are you and what do you want?" asked Naruto with his hands curling up into fists. If this guy said something useless, he would leave. The man smiled. "How rude of me. My name is Ozpin, and this is my school," said Ozpin. He still kept his form and didn't flinch to the glaring he was getting from the Uchiha. "As for what I want from you is simple. I would like you to join my school, young man," said Ozpin. The secret guardian expected the words next to be of positivity, not negativity. Naruto scoffed. "Tch, fuck off. I am not joining some school of weaklings. I could kick everyone's ass with one eye closed. If this was all you wanted from me, then I am leaving." And just like that, Naruto started to walk away. Ozpin stayed silent and sipped his iced coffee. He knew this was going to be hard. "I don't doubt you can't, considering that you have the legendary Sharingan, but do you really think only that can help you fight against the White Fang?" asked Ozpin. Naruto stopped and didn't look at Ozpin. The principal continued. "Let's be real, Naruto. Did Shisui's Sharingan keep him alive only?" asked Ozpin. The older male didn't want to be cold, but this was his only option. He could suddenly feel the hatred soaring out Naruto's body. It started to pick up wind. Naruto turned to Ozpin with the evilest glare he could send with his two Tomo Sharingan activated. "What did you say?" roared Naruto, and in seconds later his sword appeared right in front of Ozpin with his sword halfway through swing. Ozpin raised his cane before the hit came. The block kept them there but pushed the wind around them away. "Holy shit, someone is fighting Ozpin!" screamed a student. Everyone around started to look to see someone attack their principal. The cane wielder kept his eyes on Naruto's chest. Looking into the eyes of an angry Uchiha didn't result in good things. Naruto grit his teeth and pulled back to swing again, but to be blocked with the cane at last second, it made more sparks. Naruto had to admit. That speed of his, the teen did a twirl to swipe at Ozpin's legs. Coffee addict had saw this coming and jumped up with no coffee falling out the cup and jumped off Naruto. The Uchiha knew he was going to land soon, so he jumped up high in the air and soared down with his sword. He backwards gripped his sword on the handle and had his other hand on the back of the hilt. Naruto planned to impale the sword in the older man's chest. "Grow!" roared Naruto from the skies. Ozpin stood there not doing anything. He waited until Naruto was close enough to see the boy's semblance. Naruto's sword was inches away from Ozpin before the older man quickly slid to the side and came behind the Uchiha to see what he would do next. Naruto and his sword, Konoha, had arrived to the floor and had been expecting a dead man, not dirt. Naruto glanced behind himself and decided to make his semblance known. Coming from his left hand, a black flame formed into a thick line that was a bit thinner around where Naruto grabbed the flame. He swung it and Ozpin dodged it, but then saw his sword from before. He swung upwards, but the older male had jumped back from the strikes. The boy's fighting style with swords was nothing short of amazing. Any normal person would have a hard time with him, but Ozpin wasn't normal. Naruto was tired of the dodging. "This will get the bastard," thought Naruto, and we swung his fire sword sideways. It realized little fire projectiles towards Ozpin. The man smirked at this. This was simply amazing to see. A fire semblance that could do multiple of things, beautiful. The students were amazed by the display of strength from the stranger. He randomly comes to Beacon and attacks the principal, then is shooting black flames out of thin air, and Ozpin had to go on the defensive. Naruto ran straight forwards towards Ozpin with his Konoha. He tried swiping at the man's face, but it was swung away, leaving Naruto open to strike. But the Uchiha used his reflexes and recreated a flame sword. He swung it upwards the professor's chest. The powerful strike took him slightly airborne but missed. Right before he could descend, Naruto used his katana to strike Ozpin from above with a spin, hoping to cut him in half with both swords, but the coffee drinker simply raised his cane and blocked the attacks. Naruto was getting frustrated. This guy wouldn't take a hit at all. He had to end this and not allow Shisui's name to be tainted. Just before Naruto could continue, he was suddenly hit with full force by a boulder in the side. He was sent with the boulder towards an open patch in the courtyard and landed in a pillar. "Ara!" Naruto voiced as he impacted the pillar with the boulder. Ozpin turned to his side to see his teammate, Glinda Goodwitch. The woman didn't look happy. "Ozpin, what are you doing? I thought you said you wanted to talk to the boy," said Glinda. She was waiting in the integration room for 5 minutes. Ozpin looked at her. "Well, an Uchiha ways of talking is through fighting, Glinda, and I had it under control," said Ozpin. The teacher scoffed. "Under control? He is burning the courtyard to bits," yelled the angry woman. With Naruto, he pushed the boulder off him with trouble. His strength was weakening and his eyes were starting to hurt. Only if he had the Mangekyo. No, he wouldn't remember those eyes that split apart his family, the cursed eyes that ruined everything. Never. Naruto shook his head and pushed with all his might to get the boulder off him. It fell and landed on the grass below him. It made a sound, but not by much. His clothes were battered, his shirt was ripped open and exposed his chest, his abs were showing and made a few girls fangirl out a bit. The Uchiha jumped down but with trouble and landed like a pancake, face first. HRK. Naruto pushed as hard as he could to pull himself up. The pain hurt a lot and he was close to just lying on the floor, but he wouldn't leave someone talking bad about Shisui unscarred. The Uchiha pulled himself up and was wobbly. He bent his knees and ran forwards towards Ozpin. As he was in his sprint, he picked up his sword midway and hurled it towards Ozpin, but his teammate who interfered used her crop and deflected it away. It bounced off an invisible barrier and twirled away. Naruto got closer and slid to get a sneak attack on Ozpin, who only jumped over Naruto. The said Uchiha tried to do a handstand and kick at the coffee drinker but was met with face to heel. Interrogation room. "You. Wa?" Naruto slowly woke up. He could only see a bright light and felt like shit. His chest was twisting in pain. He could feel the vibe in the air. It was tense. The light breaths of 2 people in the room was all Naruto could hear. He assumed it was the white-haired bastard and that blonde-haired woman. He jerked his head up and stared straight into the eyes of Ozpin. The man simply sat there with his fingers crossed and with a coffee mug right next to him. His assistant was standing next to him. "Good to see you awake, Uchiha. It's been a day," said Glinda with a frown. She had her reasons for not liking the boy. One in particular was for tearing up the courtyard and endangering the students. Naruto looked up at her and glared. The feeling was mutual between them. Ozpin caught wind of this. All right. How about we start again with a friendly introduction? My name is Ozpin and I would like to apologize for before," said Ozpin. Naruto decided to play the game. Naruto Uchiha," he said. The man knew who he was already, so why is he doing this? Ozpin reached for his coffee cup and took a sip out of it. "Young man, I would like to know if you are still going to take my offer." Ozpin looked into Naruto's eyes and saw something from the past. Hatred. Something Ozpin was familiar with. He had experienced hatred firsthand and it led him to do things he regrets every day. Getting Naruto into this school would be a self-acceptance of his past actions. The Uchiha stayed silent and then replied. Why do you want me in your school so bad? Also, while I am asking, what do you know of me?" Naruto asked in frustration. Glinda was not liking the boy's attitude. "Now you listen here, you brat." She was cut off by Ozpin lifting his hand. "Glinda, let the boy ask. I would do the same if I was in his position," he said. His eyes were calculating again from Naruto's perspective. "Now as for your answers, why? For I do not want to see another talented youth fall into wasted potential. I have seen it too many times from different aspects." Ozpin remembered his good friend, Ironwood, doing the exact thing he mentioned. Mr. Coffee Addict continued. For what I know about you is, that you didn't exactly have the best of upbringings, he said, seeing Naruto's face scrunch up in pain, as if he was stabbed in the heart and the pain would stay during death. I also know that you have done things for Veil that I would like to thank the hooded figure for. Ozpin knew his secret. Naruto didn't like wasting time with cryptic riddles. This was wasting time that he could use to track down the White Fang and end the scumbags for good. Ozpin carried on. Don't worry, I am not going to tell this little secret, are we, Glinda? He asked, looking at her. The combat teacher nodded. He looked back at Naruto and got serious. Listen, I only want the best for you and would like to see you carry the name of your family to the highest of points. He admitted. His pants vibrated suddenly. He withdrew his scroll and looked at the screen. Ozpin's eyes opened larger and he looks to see Glinda looking at her notepad. Sir, I will go help Team RW. She again was cut off. No, I do believe this is a mission for the Vigilante of Veil, don't you think so, Naruto? He said. He displayed the message in Naruto's face and it had said, Students under attack from White Fang members. Naruto looked at Ozpin. What was his ideal goal in this situation? Well, it didn't matter now. He had to stop the White Fang and get as much intel as he could. Suddenly his cuffs came off and it allowed Naruto to stand up and rub his wrists. He looked up to see his cloak neatly folded and a mask be displayed on the table in front of him. If you think about running, Mr. Uchiha, I will catch you, said Ozpin and left the room with Glinda not far behind him. The Sharingan user threw on his cloak and put on his mask. It was a mask of a large skeleton. It is Ichigo's mask in full hollow form but without the horns. He slipped it on and pulled his hood over it. This would hide his face. Turning around, he jumped out into the cold night from the window. With Blake, Sun, Ruby, and Penny, cool was the only way to describe what was happening. Everyone watched this orange-haired girl rip through many soldiers with ease. Blake noticed it was the weird girl from before. What was she doing here? Sun just stared in amazement. The girl was pretty good, but she came off with weird vibes. Ruby had realized she misjudged Penny and could see how strong she was. Who knew? Penny had one thought in her mind: protect her friend. The orange-haired girl saw 3 airships come in her direction. She was about to proceed to shoot them down, if they didn't bring lasers of their own. The lasers shot forth and almost hit the teens, but they all jumped away. Unfortunately, the airships turned around, but with the lasers they had charged. Oh no! Thought everyone before lifting up their arms to embrace for the shot. But it never came. Instead, it was the airship that was about to fire, crashing into a bunch of dust crates owned by the Schnee Dust Company. All of them looked up. What happened? Even Torchwick was confused. As the second airship was slowing down, the ship started to slightly shake. It stopped for a moment before sending a White Fang member out the driver's window. The man landed roughly on the concrete beneath him. Webs of cracks were formed underneath the furnace. They looked up to see a cloaked figure stand on top of the last airship. It looked like a monster with that mask he wore, and the dark red eyes didn't make it better. Naruto ripped open the top of the airship and jumped in, grabbed the pilot and exited the falling aircraft. Naruto landed on the ground with his left hand holding up the White Fang member by the throat. Talk. The Uchiha said simply with a dark, creepy voice. He could see the mask was making the man in his hand slightly piss himself. The man tried wiggling out of the mask wearing teenager's grasp, but to no positive, only being held tighter around the neck. All right. I'll talk, the choking White Fang man said. Naruto simply waited while the others looked in shock. This guy just came out of nowhere and is getting White Fang intel. All we plan is... Bang! And the man's head was blown off, courtesy of Roman, who got on an escape airship. Everyone just stared in shock while Ruby was bawling her eyes out at the gruesome sight. Naruto looked towards Roman and growled, "There went any intel that would have been useful." Blake was still surprised at the action while Sun felt like vomiting. The mask-wearing Uchiha jumped towards the airship, making the ground beneath him crack. As he soared in the air towards the airship, Roman aimed his cane towards Naruto. "Stupid kid. You made me waste a lot of men," he yelled before firing. The bullet was incredibly fast and Naruto was just able to flip to dodge it with his Sharingan. Naruto noticed he was descending and just glared towards the smirking Roman. The masked boy turned in the air and bent his knees when he landed on the ground softly. He looked up and saw everyone staring at him. However, when he made eye contact with the black red-haired girl, he could suddenly feel his eyes burn up. Ruby looked towards this stranger and saw his eyes. Instantly her eyes started to burn up as well. She clutched her face tightly and howled. Arg! She yelled and fell to her knees. The pain was so much. Naruto wasn't doing too well either. His eyes felt as if they were on fire. He could feel a liquid dribble down his cheek. He could only assume it was blood by how warm it felt. Blake became very worried for her leader. Ruby, what's wrong? She asked in worry. Ruby tried her best to reply. I don't know, my eyes just hurt, she cried. Blake looked towards Naruto and could see he was in the same pain. What the hell is going on around here? The cat Faunus wondered. Blake turned her head towards a siren noise. She could see the police coming. Naruto opened one eye with difficulty and saw the police coming. Shit. I gotta go, he thought, and pushed himself up and jumped towards the roof of the warehouse right behind him. When he landed on the roof, he tumbled to the floor. Arg! What's going on with my eyes? The pain is unbearable, thought Naruto, and pushed himself up again to run towards the city. Naruto's apartment. As the Uchiha climbed up the building with difficulty, he had noticed that his eyes were getting better. What was going on with that? Did that hooded girl use her semblance? But she was hurt as well, so something must be up. He climbed in his window and looked at his room. Everything was the same. Naruto took off his mask and threw it in the corner of the room. It tumbled next to the bathroom door. He flopped on his bed and took a deep breath. What a crazy day. Before Naruto could go to the land of dreams, he got a message on his scroll. The young Uchiha reached into his pants and retrieved it. Naruto lifted it close to his face and read it. It was from Ospin. Glad you stopped the robbery. Do hope you can visit sometime. Hope to hear from you soon. It was sent by Ospin. Naruto frowned and typed his message back. Go fuck yourself, and send. Naruto closed his eyes and let his consciousness take over. With Ospin, Ospin was looking at his messages and just read what he got a reply from. Go fuck yourself. He had read. Ospin knew that Uchihas weren't the best to talk to when tired, but this was important. If the boy was set in the wrong path, it would be the end of Remnant. Uchihas, the only one who didn't follow the history was Kagami Uchiha, Naruto and Shisui's ancestor, he thought. They did share a slight resemblance if he thought about it. Suddenly Ospin got a message from his collage in the Brotherhood. The queen has pawns, said Kirao in a message. The coffee drinker just observed the message before thinking out loud. He hummed and went to reply. End of chapter. Alright, really quickly I want to go over some stuff. 1. Naruto's powers are very limited with his semblance and the Sharingan. The reason Naruto does have Inferno style is because I couldn't think of anything. Because I am a loser. And also I have purposes for it later. Naruto can only do what he did in this chapter with his semblance right now. Later he will get better. Every Uchiha in this story has different powers for their semblance and Mangekyo, which by the way will be watered down a little. 2. I am really glad you guys are enjoying this more than my other story. I do hope this gets more than my first. 3. Pairings. Please send in ideas and I am open for debate for what the pairing should be. Hell, I might put up a poll if I can figure out how. Now for something I want to start new for the series. This isn't canon but could be if you like. A distant possibility. Number 1. Peace. It had been achieved a few years ago. The land had flourished and the world was free of Grimm. All criminals were stopped and all was nice. We see a man, about 28 years old, walking down a small trail in the forest. This man had a large black cloak on and had black hair covering his right eye. He had been searching for this house out here for a while and now found it. He stepped out the woods and saw a 2-story wooden house. It had a balcony with a fireplace on the roof. The man walks towards the door and knocks on it. He waits for a moment and then sees the door slightly open to reveal a small silver eye. "CC, can I help you?" asked the small eye, looking at the man's blue eye. The man smiled and said, "Yes, I would like to see your mother, please," he asked politely. The eye quickly ran inside and yelled for his mother. "Moom, someone is at the door for you," yelled the kid. The adult male heard footsteps coming and it revealed a beautiful woman. "I told you farmers to leave my so." The woman stopped mid-talk and looked at the newcomer, who was someone from the past. The man smiled down towards the woman. "Hey," he said, and then was tackled to the grass outside. "You're back," she screamed and kissed the man. Then she pulled herself up and looked at the black-haired man. "I see that you oof." The man was interrupted by a fist to his face. "You know how long I missed you?" Do you? She screamed, still punching his face in. The child in the back saw his mother beating the stranger into a pulp but wanted to know. Mew mama, whaa, why are you beating that man up? He asked as he stood in the door sill. The mother replied with slowly stopping on beating up the male underneath her. This, darling, is your father, she revealed with a smile towards her son. The kid's world stopped for a moment. Father? Like, one that his cousin had? The kid shook his head and ran to his now beaten up to a pulp father. Daddy! He screamed and jumped on his mother and father, with tears leaking out his eyes. The older male was able to wipe away the blood and pulled his wife and son into a one-armed hug. Hi there, little guy, the man said and smiled at his son. Hey Dad. The kid replied with a big smile. His father replied with a question. Son, I am sorry I wasn't there for you, I was doing something busy. He heard a scoff from his wife. Say, why don't you tell me your name inside? I do believe your mother has made lunch, yes? He asked. The boy nodded and got off his newfound father. Yeah, by the way Dad, my name is Tempest Uchiha. He said, dragging his father inside the house with his mother behind him, drying off tears of having her family back. He stood there, cold, sore, sad, all these emotions rushing in his mind and body. He could feel the wind push back his black shirt that hid all the blood that he was drenched in. His spiky hair fluttered in the wind. The young Uchiha stared at the burnt houses in front of him, all the houses that were being hidden away in a little canyon in the mountains of Vale. They all held memories that would forever be sealed in his mind, but now were burnt to the ground and were covered in blood. Blood. The liquid that Naruto was now familiar with as it was seeping out of the corpses of Naruto's family all around the grassy patch hidden within the mountains. It was all too quick. Everything happened so fast, Naruto's head started to hurt. Naruto fell to his knees and held his head. The pain wouldn't go away. The flashes of his family's decomposing bodies scattered everywhere. Some limbs were chopped off the dead bodies while all there was left was large pools of different shades of red. It was all too much. He screamed and cried. The youngest of the remaining Uchihas scattered across Remnant blacked out on the red grass. That night was recorded in history of Remnant as the Uchiha downfall, a sad night for the remaining Uchihas and many other supporters of the near-extinction clan. This was needed, said a voice that sounded stale and slightly proud. End of Naruto's dream. Naruto's eyes shot open, and he hurled himself off his mattress which lay comfortably on the floor along with various other clothing. The Uchiha looked around in fear, hoping it wasn't the same thing over again. To his fortune it wasn't. No blood covering his walls and no corpses laying around. Naruto caught his breath and slowly walked to his bathroom. He looked at himself in the mirror that hung above the sink. He felt like he was staring into the eyes of his father when comparing his eyes. He looked down to his tap and turned the cold water on. He cupped his hands and felt the cold water fill up his cupped hands and threw it on his face. The feeling was refreshing and swept away all the negative emotion that he was feeling slightly. Naruto decided to wash himself for the new day. He had to open the shop because he was knocked out for a day and sales didn't make themselves known by simply having closed doors. The Uchiha got in his shower and let his muscles be washed by the hot water. He felt relaxed and could feel the tension be dissolved into nothing. Naruto stepped out his shower and wrapped a towel around his waist. He walked up to his closet and looked inside for the appropriate clothing for the shop. As he looked inside, he saw his old diary lying on the bottom. Feeling nostalgic, he reached down to grab it, and when he did, he remembered how he got that diary. Flashback. Young Naruto sat on a bed by a windowsill with a desk next to him with a sunflower on it. He remembered everything from the night and felt so alone. He didn't care that he woke up in someone else's house. He just grieved knowing that he will wake up every day without a family member by his side. While Naruto was sitting there letting his tears fall to the blanket that covered waist down, he didn't notice the door that was in the room creak open. The young Uchiha just let his tears fall and sat there waiting for something to happen. Fortunately, someone came in. It was a man with a battered red cloak and wore a gray dress shirt, black pants and shoes to match. "Oi kid, harden up," the newcomer said. Naruto slightly jumped at the voice and looked up to stare into the dark red eyes of Kirao Branwen. The young Uchiha felt angry. Harden up? His whole family just got slaughtered. Harden up. Harden up, Naruto said in outrage. This man wouldn't ever understand his pain. Who the hell is he to say harden up? I lost my mom, my dad, And now my brother and everyone else. How can I when they are all gone? Naruto yelled and cried. Kirao stayed silent. He was never good with kids. I know. I saw and saved you from the reinforcements. I am not happy about it too. And I might not be able to relate, but let me ask, are you just gonna take it and mope all day? He asked, looking into the eyes of the youngest Uchiha. Naruto's face changed from rage to confusion. What if the attackers came back to attack everyone you ever cared about in the future? What will you do then? Kirao asked, somewhat knowing the answer. Naruto thought about it. If the enemy took away people he cared about, he would fight with all his might and destroy them. He replied. I would fight back and destroy them. He said truthfully, but why the hell did this guy care? Kirao slightly frowned. You know that most people would do what a huntsman would do and just get them to go to prison, right, kid? He said. This kid could do great things under him, but one thing the older man did know was that Naruto didn't take prisoners and could potentially be a threat. Naruto could feel something in the back of his mind. It triggered something within him that made him feel amazing. The tingle gave him a sense of pleasure. The first taste of hatred. Can you teach me? Naruto suddenly blurred out with his eyes focused on Kirao. This man could help him get to this goal that was just formed. Kirao stayed silent and went with the pros and cons. He could teach this kid and make him into one of the best huntsmen out there and get rid of the threat of someone dangerous teaming up with those who threatened the peace. Fine, but don't cry later when you get a cut, he said and turned around, leaving the room. Naruto nodded and got out of the bed, and followed his new master, Sensei. As he left the room, he went down a small hallway to the living room of this house. There was his master grabbing his weapon and a bag. Naruto was about to grab the other bag next to Kirao to be polite, but was pushed back with a small book held to his chest. Naruto looked down and saw the word, Dairy, written on it. Master, what is this for? He asked, looking up. Without removing eye contact, he grabbed the book. Whatever I teach you is going to be written down. At most I will only be able to train you for a year and then you are on your own, he said simply and started to walk towards the door. The youngest Uchiha alive nodded and ran after the drunk. End of flashback. The small Dairy. He had filled all the pages with everything that he could been taught with, the stances, the movements, everything that would help in a battle. Just before he could flip into the first page, his room bell rang. Naruto, lifting his head up and looking towards the door, he lets curiosity take over. The Uchiha opens the door and is met with his acquaintance, Adley. The dog Faunus was a teenager like himself but was incredibly childish. She had German shepherd ears that sat on her gray hair, which went to her backside. She wore a pink polo shirt with 3 buttons going from the neck to the chest. Her skin was slightly tan, which made her a little attractive. Her pants were tight black jeans and had red flip-flops with yellow straps that went with her deep red eyes. Naruto stood there and answered. What do you want, Adley? He asked with no care. Adley puffed her cheeks. How rude. You never say, oh Adley. Look at you. You are so beautiful. No, it's always. What do you want? She imitated Naruto at the end. Naruto blinked and just sighed. Well, I am changing so you can come in or out. Either way I don't care, he said and left the door to go back to his closet. Adley let herself in and looked around. Nothing much changed other than the weird mask in the corner of the room. Ignoring it, the dog Faunus sat on the mattress on the floor and looked at Naruto change. She never cared about nudity since she grew up with 2 perverted parents, and plus she thought this was eye candy. Adley then remembered why she came. Oh yeah, Naruto, there is a package on the front of the shop. I think it's the new books, she said. Naruto slipped on a black high-collared t-shirt, with black pants and matching sneakers. He then went to his door and was about to leave before replying. Thanks. Come help the shop a little and I will let you off your rent this week, he said and walked down the stairs. Adley smirked at that deal and followed after him. In Tuxin's bookshop, when Naruto reached the bottom floor, he had looked at the store and walked to the front. He flipped the sign that he had hanging there. It said on the outside of the shop, "We are open." Naruto opened the door and saw the package full of books. It looked heavy, but nothing too hard. The youngest of the living Uchihas bent his knees and squatted. He always remembered Kirao saying that using your back to lift things can ruin you for battle. Speaking of Kirao, he might be dead in a ditch somewhere considering how drunk the man was for a considerate amount of time. Naruto carried the box to the counter and opened it with a knife. Inside were different copies of high sellers. two of which were bestsellers, Ninjas of Love and Make-Out Tactics Volume 3. Naruto could remember the day the author of Make-Out Tactics asked him to be one of the main protagonists in his book. It was in a spa room with a mere fence separating the boys' and girls' spa rooms. Naruto caught the pervert sitting atop a tree writing down stuff for his next book and noticed him. Adley helped him unload the books from the box, which made Naruto come out of his thoughts. After setting everything up, Naruto sat in front of the counter and waited for a customer while Adley left the store to go out. Naruto reached into his pocket and pulled out his scroll. He had to check up the dates of what the White Fang were going to do. Tomorrow at night they were going to attack a government building while there was going to be a meeting, killing important political figures with bombings. He frowned. The White Fang are restless bastards when it came to their goal. Hopefully he would be able to catch a few of them to find their headquarters. He would take revenge for his fellow Uchiha brethren who died by their hands. This didn't mean he hated Faunus, he just hated the White Fang for killing his family and making him alone. The Uchiha heard the doorbell go off and saw two people walk in. One of them was a young woman. She had mint green hair that had a slight curved fringe with two long locks protruding from the back of her head. Her red eyes spelled out mischievous. This woman wore a crop top with a darker green undershirt. Her pants were white and had brown chaps. Her weapons were sitting on her backside. She had light brown skin that went well with her eyes. Her partner was a tall male. He had gray hair that matched his eyes. He wore a black and gray jacket that had a zip up to his neck. On his arms sat gray rerebraces and vambraces. As his belt he had some makeshift belt with his sash. His pants were black and had matching shoes. "Hello. Welcome to Tuxin's Book Trade, home to every book under the sun," Naruto said. The two looked at him in confusion, but then smiled. The smile was fake from what Naruto has seen. "Hi," said the female. "Do you have the new copy of Make-Out Tactics?" she asked, while her partner looked at some comics on the shelf. Yeah, we do. Just came in recently," Naruto said and reached under the desk and pulled out a copy. "That will be $6, it's on a special deal with Ninjas of Love, both are $6, he said, trying to sell more products. The woman stayed silent and hummed, then had a big smile before nodding. He placed Ninjas of Love on the counter and collected his payment. He looked at her partner. "Hey, you want to buy it?" Naruto asked. It was a comic of two superheroes fighting. "Nah, just looking," he answered, but then looked towards Naruto. "You know, I was wondering if I could speak to your manager," he said, looking into Naruto's eyes. The Uchiha answered carefully. "I am the manager," he said. "They must be looking for Tuxin." "White Fang members." "No, that can't be right. Who are they?" Naruto thought. "Can I ask for names?" Naruto asked. He had to play it smart with these people just in case they were spies of some kind. The male answered. "Mercury and Emerald," he said with a smirk. "Sorry, I don't think I have heard the names," he answered them both. Emerald was having enough. "All right, let's cut to the chase. Where is Tuxin? His buddies in the White Fang are looking for him," she said. "So, I guessed right, White Fang spies. I could try and take them out and see what they know," thought Naruto, but then glanced at the other boy. "But there is two of them. Even with my Sharingan I wouldn't be able to beat them without destroying the shop." Mercury went to the light switch and blinds. He closed both so nobody could see from the outside. "I never thought I would be killing a kid," said Mercury. At this moment Naruto knew this was going to get bad. He had to get them out the shop. Emerald replied to her partner. "Well, you know our boss. She never likes loose ties," she said, looking at Naruto and getting into a stance. "So, you want to try and kill me?" Naruto said. He closed his eyes and then opened them, revealing his two Tomo Sharingan. "Very well then." And with a push Naruto vaulted over the counter and ran straight forwards and kicked at Emerald with his right leg. She saw the strike coming and blocked it, but then saw him flip above her and use his left leg to axe drop her. Mercury took this chance and kicked Naruto in the chest, sending him soaring out the back of the shop and landing in the back alleyway. The brick wall wasn't a comfortable landing spot. Naruto already could tell that he was going to be paying more money than he wanted to if he made it out alive. Looking up, he saw his attacker jump at him with his robotic leg, ready to crush him to death. Naruto grabbed the top of the hole he was smashed in and flipped himself upwards while bending his legs to kick Mercury in the face. Naruto pushed his legs outwards and kicked away Mercury. He looked for the other member and saw her raise her guns and pointed at Naruto. If it weren't for his Sharingan he wouldn't been able to dodge the bullets but barely. Naruto jumped back into the alley giving both parties space. Emerald smirked when looking into Naruto's eyes. "So, it's a survivor of the Uchiha clan she said. "Shit. I kinda am regretting killing him. Top lady is not going to be happy about us killing an Uchiha. Oh well, we can just take his eyes," Mercury said. Naruto had sweat go down the side of his head. The both work well together. He could still feel the pain from the kick into the brick wall. Taking a deep breath he activated his aura. A small black flame started to produce from the palm of his hand, which Mercury and Emerald took notice. "What's he?" Mercury was about to say before seeing a black line be formed and hurled towards him and his partner. "Flame control," Naruto yelled while hurling a curved fire at Emerald and Mercury. With quick reflexes, they jumped. Emerald flipped her weapons and transformed them into kusarigamas. She hurled one of them towards Naruto while Mercury shot off shockwaves of air towards the Uchiha. Naruto dodged the air shots by running up the wall of his shop, but was inches away from getting his stomach cut open from Emerald throwing her weapon at him. With the help of his Sharingan he grabbed the blade of the weapon and with a little trouble he pulled it towards him bringing Emerald. His hand was starting to feel a little numb by grabbing the blade and bleeding. Naruto got Emerald close and was going to bounce off her but was stabbed in the shoulder by the mint greens girl's other kusarigama and let go of the blade. Naruto fell to the floor and quickly rolled to dodge the drop kick from Mercury, who followed Naruto with a series of drop kicks trying to stomp on his head. Naruto saw with his visual prowess Emerald switch her weapons back into revolvers. The said attacker shot her guns at Naruto's legs. The Uchiha with as much force, hurled his body upwards and used both his legs to push back Mercury's and to dodge the bullets. The boy with the leg-based fighting style pushed down hoping to break Naruto's legs but saw a black flame almost cut open his head so he jumped back towards his partner. Naruto had used his spare arm to hurl a flame control wave at Mercury making him retreat. "TCH, the cops are going to be here soon, we gotta go," Mercury said started to run with Emerald not far behind him. Naruto fell on one knee and was huffing. That was a close one. He would have died if he hadn't used flame control. A sudden pain shot through his body, the result of using Amaterasu at full power too much. He sat there for a minute. The pain was like getting smashed by a giant hammer over and over. Naruto lifted himself with difficulty. Those attackers did a number on him and they came with the intent to kill. He remembered their names, Emerald and Mercury. No, it must have been fake names. Real spies know what they're doing, so back to square one. Naruto looked towards his shop. The door to the ally was broken down. He would pay for it later. Right now he had to get knowledge about the assault on him, but he didn't know where to start. Maybe, Ozpin knows this was a double-edged sword. Getting knowledge from Ozpin would make the coffee drinker believe Naruto is deciding to side with him. The Uchiha sighed and walked back to the shop. He had to patch up the bloody hole in his shoulder. Later, Naruto sat on his windowsill, looking towards Beacon. He was currently debating heavily with himself. Getting knowledge from Ozpin would help greatly, but then it would be a week of consistent harassment. The young man got off his windowsill and walked towards his closet. He had to ask. The attackers were connected to Tuxin, therefore the White Fang. Harassment was a small price to pay. Naruto grabbed his mask that sat on top of his closet and his hooded black cloak from the closet and put both on. The young Uchiha stepped out his window and jumped down. When landing on the dark road he ran towards the large school. Beacon. Naruto had to take a boat to get close to the school. The bullheads wouldn't be flying at night. When he was getting closer he noticed a spotlight watching the waters. Naruto jumped out the boat and swam the rest to the school. He had to swim deep to not get noticed by the spotlights. The Uchiha swam up and grabbed onto a ledge and climbed his way up to the courtyard. When he reached the top, his red eyes stared into the clock tower of Beacon, most likely the sitting place of the principal. And just like that Naruto ran in a sprint, with the wind pushing against him. His hood flew off revealing his mask. While in his sprint, Naruto heard an alarm go off. Fuck, Naruto thought and kept running towards the tower, but ahead was a couple of drones were flying towards him. Team Ruby's dorm. Silence was what occupied Team Ruby's dorm, but was disturbed when an alarm went off, a loud one. "Ah!" yelled Ruby as she fell out of her bed in fright. What was going on was everyone's thoughts in the room. Weiss yawned tiredly and looked at the window to see what was going on. She opened the blind and saw someone running towards the clock tower with drones following the intruder in the courtyard. "Wah! What is that?" she cried in surprise. Everyone rushed to the window and saw a hooded figure with a black mask run towards the clock tower. Ruby and Blake's eyes widened in surprise. "It's that guy from the docks," cried Ruby. She turned around and went to her drawer to grab her clothes. "Ruby, where do you think you are going?" asked Yang, standing in front of Ruby. "Yang, I need to talk to that guy. I want to know what happened at the docks with my eyes," she said, and tried to move her sister but was grabbed by the shoulders. "That's the guys who made your eyes hurt?" she asked in rage. Her eyes flickered red. "Why, yeah," stuttered Ruby. She knew her sister was not happy when she came home from the docks with sore eyes by someone with the same appearance as the current intruder. The fiery blonde let go of her sister and opened the drawer, revealing her clothes. She changed and ran to the locker room as fast as she could to catch this bastard. With Naruto was currently dodging bullets from the drones firing at him. They were relentless with how quick they reloaded. The Uchiha withdrew his sword and jumped at one of the bots. He deflected the bullets as fast he could and most rebounded away. Finally reaching the drone, Naruto hurled his sword into the air and cut it in half. Right after doing that, Naruto jumped at another drone and impaled it with his sword. Reinforcements would come soon. He had to get to Ospin before anyone else arrived. Naruto Shippuden episode 477 Ost need to be strong. Naruto was suddenly hit across the face by a fist and was sent tumbling back. He rolled and was slightly lifted off the ground a few times before sliding to a stop. Naruto lifted himself up and looked to see this newcomer but could only have time to dodge a fist hitting his face. With quick movements, the Uchiha quickly turned his upper body and raised his left fist to strike this blonde woman, but was again hit in a burst of speed across the face. Naruto was sent into a pillar incredibly fast and smashed through it. He slid across the grass. This girl, she is so fast even for my Sharingan," he thought while pushing himself up. He ran to his sword he dropped mid-flight and charged the red-eyed blonde. "Ha!" roared Naruto while he kept running. "Hi-ya!" His attacker screamed back and the two attacks collided. The shotgun wrist blocked the sword from cutting her wrist off. Naruto's sword was stuck in it and he was pushing it. Who are you and why are you attacking me?" asked Naruto with a deep voice. "This is payback to what you did to my sister on the docks. Hyyaa. She used her other fist and punched Naruto in the stomach. "Gruer." The Uchiha growled. He had to keep posture, otherwise it wouldn't end well for him. Yang charged her fist back again to rocket it in his stomach, but it was blocked by his knee. With all his force, Naruto pulled the sword out and swung it at her. She ducked under the swing and smirked, but had a face of surprise when a black flame came from the blade and was swung upwards to cut her. Yang jumped back and fired off a few shots while falling back. Naruto deflected the shots with his sword. He could feel the bullets push his sword back a bit. Must be shotgun shells or something. Judging from the power of the shots, she is using her muscle to add extra force to the bullets to fly faster and harder. I need to be cautious of her, thought Naruto, and dodged another shot. Yang ran forward faster this time. She was done playing around and ready to beat his ass. The enraged blonde appeared above Naruto and had her fist jerked back. She pushed her arm downward and hit the top of Naruto's mask and made him hit the floor. What Yang noticed, it was incredibly hard and durable. She grunted. A moment ago Naruto was looking at Yang and then was hit into the dirt below himself. She was too fast for him, but he wasn't going to take it. Naruto quickly did a handstand and swung his legs forward trying to kick Yang. She blocked all the attacks but couldn't counterattack because of how quick Naruto's legs would come and she would be forced to block. The Uchiha took this opportunity to spin himself and trip up Yang. She fell on her back and raised her arms to block any attack descending on her. But nothing came. She moved her arms out of the way to see the masked man's fist staying still in the air. It was slightly shaking, showing that it wouldn't budge. Yang looked around to see what was going on and could see her combat teacher, Glinda Goodwitch, hold her crop towards Naruto. She finally understood what happened. "Was this needed at all, Ms. Long?" asked her principal, coming out of hiding from behind Glinda. Yang tried to justify her actions. No. I wanted to beat this guy up because apparently this was the guy who hurt Ruby at the docks the other night," truthfully answered Yang. Ospin stood there silently for a minute before replying. "Your actions were somewhat good, Yang. You came to fight an intruder, but under the wrong intention. Please don't let this be a common thing, Ms. Long. You may go back to your dorm and rest while I talk to our guest," said Ozpin and then looked to the masked boy. Yang nodded and started to walk away, but not before saying her piece. "If I ever catch you hurting any one of my friends and family, I will do a lot worse to you and there won't be someone to save you," said the blonde before walking back. Glinda and Ozpin just watched her leave before redirecting their attention to the youngest Uchiha. "Was it necessary for you to come rushing into the school like you did tonight? You know you could have called me. Please explain why you are here at this hour?" asked Ozpin. Naruto was finally set free and he tumbled a bit before recapturing his posture. "Yeah, I am not going to wait around for a day for a reply. I got attacked today by some thugs with fighting skills compared to some skilled assassins. They came for Tuxin and only found me. I was hoping that you might know them," Naruto said, staring into Ozpin's glasses. The coffee drinker hummed. "Well, could you tell me what these assassins looked like? They might be connected to the queen." The skull mask nodded. "Yeah, one of them had mint green hair, female, with 2 weapons on her backside, and her partner looked a little like that assassin, Marcus Black. He said they were mostly trying to kill him so he could only remember so much." Ozpin glanced at his partner and saw her typing down these details. She looked at him and shook her head. "Well, I can't say that we know of them, but if they do pop up we will give you a notification," the man said and continued. "Is there anything else you want to discuss?" he said, staring into Naruto's eyes. Naruto nodded. "Yeah, do you know where I can get some intel? An information broker?" he said. Ozpin stayed silent. It was bound to happen with the boy. He was desperate for looking for intel on the White Fang if he came to him. The male stayed silent before reaching into his vest and pulled out a card. He flicked the card, which Naruto caught and looked at. "In this club the owner is an information broker. I don't go to him for a source, but I know he holds many important facts about people and organizations," said Ozpin, hinting the organization's part. Naruto glanced at the card and then back at Ozpin. "Thanks, we can negotiate owings later. I need to go," he said before running towards the cliff of beacon. Glinda watched as Naruto ran off and then looked at Ozpin. "You know that he is out to destroy the White Fang. What if he comes after the Fao?" Ozpin cut her off. "Then we will convince him not to. He is like a blank canvas, and I want to be the first to cover him in paint," said Ozpin, walking off with Glinda walking behind him. But she then turned around when she heard Naruto yell one word. "Ebony!" he screamed and then jumped off the cliff. Glinda thought the boy just went ahead and killed himself, but then suddenly a black blur just flew upwards with Naruto on its back. When the object didn't look as blurry as before, she got a good look at it. It had the shape of a horse but had black wings spouting out its sides. It had a mask on its face. Glinda blinked. Did Naruto just jump away riding a Grim? It was too late for this shit and she wanted to go to bed. As the wind blew past Naruto's cloak as he sat on his ride, Ebony, he had thought about his battle with that blonde bimbo. She had been so fast even for his Sharingan. Normally he would have countered all the hits she hit on him, but every time he was going for a strike, she had a stance one too familiar to his own that was ready to block the next attack always. Kirao's fighting style, but mixed with the fan dance. Only Uchihas knew the fan dance, and those outside the clan who knew it were dead. So how the fuck did she learn to use it? She didn't have an implanted Sharingan, so wouldn't it have to be hard for her to fight like that? He slightly frowned. Someone from the Uchiha clan was teaching people the fan dance, and if those moves got to the White Fang, then it would be incredibly hard to fight them. He would find this Uchiha and find out his intentions. Naruto looked down at the city of Vale and saw the club he was suggested to go to. He leaned his body towards the ground and the Grim listened. It flew downwards to the cold pavement and started to glide down with its wings to the ground. Ebony had raised his legs and used them as landing gears. It left skid marks on the road and came to a halt. Naruto hopped of the Grim and patted it on the stomach to signal it to go away. He walked to the entrance of the club that sat underneath a large roadway above him. Inside the club, within this club held many people, some who were dancing with their friends, those who sat at the bar and just wanted some break from the world known as work, and people who were just having a good time. However, one person was annoyed. His name was Junior in the underworld, known throughout Vale and the black market of Mistrial. This man stood quite tall and wore simply black vest over a white shirt that had a tie. His pants were black and had matching shoes along with hair, gloves, and eyes. He was currently looking at a photo of one of his spies, who just got killed in vacuo from a drunk man. Sighing, he sat down on a seat at the bar and called for a drink. His bar recently just got fixed from the assault from the blonde girl. Just before he could close his scroll, a hand grabbed his wrist from closing it. He looked to see who did it and then saw two red eyes with two black tomos staring into his eyes, and instantly recognizing who it was. "Talk," said this newcomer, in a deep voice. He sounded impatient. Junior frowned. He didn't like being ordered around, especially from strangers. "Look, Uchiha," the older male said. "I understand you are a big vigilante, but I don't have time to mess with children. If you want something, go to that guy, Ospin," he said before trying to pull off Naruto's arm before realizing how tight the grip was. "How much?" Naruto asked. He didn't care if he knew who he was. All that mattered was that intel. Junior stayed silent and looked at his guards, who had their sights on Naruto just in case he would start something. The owner of the bar waved them off and looked back at the Uchiha. "Depends who," he simply said. Naruto loosened his grip and sat down with Junior. He reached into his clock and pulled out a large stack of money before placing it in front of Junior, who was staring at the money like it was free. "White Fang. Everything you know about them, members, locations, and associates except you," Naruto said. From what Junior could tell was that this boy in front of him didn't fuck around with small intelligence pieces. He wanted it all. Junior looked at the money differently now. "You are going to need a lot more bundles of those before you get that much intel on the White Fang. They're costly, and you and I both know that you don't have that much." The White Fang were people you didn't want to fuck over for some cheap-ass price like that much the Uchiha was offering. Naruto was getting pissed. He guessed he could only get so much with the amount he had on him. Fine, just locations, he decided. That was all he basically needed, since he could just capture someone from one of the bases. Junior smirked. He grabbed a piece of paper and wrote down a few locations and then handed them to Naruto. "Here are some, but only a few, as you didn't pay my requirement for as many as you wanted," and then he left. 4 locations is all Naruto got with $10,000, it was better than nothing. When Naruto got out the building, he had pulled out his scroll and turned it on to check his notifications. He had got one from Tucson. "Hey kid. How is it? I just wanted to check up on you because I heard from Adley that the back door to the shop was broken. Well, I know you can fix it. Anyway, give me a call sometime when you're not busy," the message had read. Naruto smiled underneath his mask. Tucson was always checking up on him when he didn't talk for a while. Changing his focus again, Naruto looked around for the tallest building he could find other than Beacon Tower. He noticed it was a large building that had a large satellite that sat a few blocks away. Running towards there, he intended to use the peak of the building to map out the city. Atlas Prison. Deep within this prison held the worst criminals known to man, rapists, murderers, White Fang members, and so much more. When you walked down the halls, you could hear some of the punishment procedures that happened to misbehaved prisoners. The fanas who were thrown in jail were treated more worst. However, there was one man who sat deep underneath the prison who was feared by everyone in the establishment. He was known for being the worst of the worst. Everyone who saw him had nightmares about him. Most of the guards were dead scared of him. Only a few higher-ups weren't scared of him because they had been the ones to lock him up. His name reached every corner of Remnant for years on end. He was known as the Ghost of the Uchiha. This male's name was Madara Uchiha. Living for more than 400 years, this Uchiha had been watching the world evolve to what it is today. He watched the Great War. He had watched the Fall Maiden lose her power to Salam's little slave, and even the death of the Uchiha clan. With how many were left, including himself, there were only 5 Uchihas living. From what he could sense from Vale were 2 younger Uchihas resonating there, while the one closest to him was somewhere in Atlas and the last one was in Vacuo. He smirked at the thought of the 2 from Vale. They had a large aura pool each, and out of one of them had their Mangekyo unlocked. Madara was looking well for being 400 years old. He looked like he was in his 20s. He had dark black hair that reached his backside if he stood up. He was sat in a chair with robotic locks pierced into his legs, arms, and torso that restrained him. Looking around the room, all the prisoner would see was black and a single light that sat above him. Those who came to feed him had a squad of people aiming their guns at him. Closing his eyes to catch some sleep, Madara noticed people were watching him in the window above him. If he focused, he could sense the words they were saying. From the window 2 guards stood and watched the man, until one of them asked the other a question. "So, if he is 400 years old, then why is he still alive? And what did he do so bad that made him stay locked up for so long?" asked the guard. He was a transfer from the Veil prison. The guard next to him answered. Madara Uchiha, the ghost of the famous Uchiha clan. In his time he had been the strongest living Uchiha and was only rivaled to two people, Henry Arc and Cole Schnee, the founders of big families. He fought both during his time and was the only one to come out alive to speak about it, he said with all seriousness. The guard from Veil looked back at Madara and said his thoughts. He doesn't look like much, he arrogantly said. The Atlas guard sighed. The newbies learned the hard way in here. What you don't understand is that Madara has nearly escaped 2 times, and the second one was by luck. Do you understand what would happen if he got out? The man said. No, stuttered the man. This guy seems scared of Madara himself. We would all be dead. No one can stand up to him. Maybe some of the hunters like Kirao or something, but even then, that is a stretch. Also because he is alive is unknown. We have been trying to figure out how he is still alive to this day. The only conclusion we have come to is that he is immortal by something. Anyway, let's get going. We need to transfer the other prisoners to Veil, said the guard. The other guard looked at the prisoner one last time and then left with his superior. While the two were talking, Madara was thinking about the 2 Uchihas in Veil. The two seemed to have a difference in strength with their Sharingan, however that is going to change soon. I shall get to talking to the weaker one soon. He will carry out my ambitions, but I need to figure out how to get him to Atlas, thought Madara. He kept thinking until he remembered the convocation with the 2 guards. Anyway, let's get going. We need to transfer the other prisoners to Veil. He repeated the sentence in his mind, before smiling. Looks like I will be busy tonight, was his thought before flaring his aura. Back in Veil, Naruto had climbed to the top of the tall building that had a satellite sitting atop it. This way he could find the locations and make a shortcut to the places quicker. In a sudden turn of events, the wind started to get heavy and was pushing stuff away on the street. Cars started to fly into buildings and cycles were soaring into the air. Naruto quickly held onto the ladder of the satellite and waited, but with a bit of trouble since he had an injured shoulder. What the hell? What the hell is this? Thought Naruto as his body flung like a flag in the wind while holding onto the ladder for dear life. As he looked up, he saw an expensive-looking car heading straight for him. With some force, Naruto flung his body to the ladder, with his legs tightly wrapped around it, and then let go. The wind pushed him back, but the car was coming to him faster because of its weight. Thankfully he had landed on the now descending vehicle and jumped on to the others above him. Naruto tried to think of a plan to get to safety. These cars and bikes are coming in all directions and I can only jump around so much. If I could hide in something that wouldn't be crushed or knocked over maybe. He turned his head to look down to his left and saw a water tank. That could work, but it might be knocked down. He thought before looking down at his right and saw the open area of underneath the highway and saw one of the pillars blocking some of the cars. I'll have to hide behind it, he thought before jumping off another car and onto a bike. The youngest Uchiha sat in the bike and used his body mass to turn it upside down. With doing that he had jumped off the bike. He landed on the bottom side of a car and jumped towards the pillar that held the highway above him. He quickly slid his hands on the pillar and ran around the pillar. He ran down it like a spiral and dodged a few cars. This feeling of adrenaline filled Naruto, and with it he had quickly pulled his sword out of its sheath and impaled it into the pillar and waited for the wind to stop blowing. With Salam sat in her kingdom and sat in her throne. She had heard Tyrion just got a small lead on the Spring Maiden and was slightly happy. Her mood however changed a second later and was replaced with nostalgic and slight confusion when she felt an ancient aura flared all the way from Atlas. So, he is making a move, huh? I'm wondering why he hasn't for so long, she thought. Madara always slightly sat in her mind. He could always fuck over her subordinates and then come after her, but he never did and just sat quietly within Atlas prison. But now he was attempting escape and would be free. What is his move? Salam thought silently, with Ozpin and Ironwood. Ozpin had been in a call with Ironwood discussing the research progress on the Fall Maiden. Nothing was working and all the theories to heal the maiden were shot down by another outcome. Oz, I was hoping to discuss the plan to have a new Vey. Ironwood was interrupted by a soldier who was blasted through the wall. Debris came flying in. General, are you all right? Said Ozpin. Was it an attack from the queen, he wondered. Ironwood pushed off a piece of debris and pushed off the dead body of his subordinate. As he lifted himself up he looked in the direction of the blast and saw that the halls of the military tower was in pieces with people and technology. Ironwood, are you okay? I will send in some hunters to help you. said Ospin and started to dial into his scroll before the general told him not to. Don't. Atlas has got this under control, it will be over before you know it, he said and then ran off. While he ran towards the chaos he called in one of his advisors. Kate, tell me what is going on outside, said Ironwood running past some medics. Sir, one of the prisoners of the Atlas prison escaped. It's Madara Uchiha. The woman named Kate yelled over an explosion. Ironwood's face turned into worry. Madara, the ghost of the Uchiha clan, escaped. How? The general shook his head and ran towards the Shinee mansion to protect John and his family. With Madara dead by daylight, Ost killer theme. The proclaimed ghost of the Uchiha clan was currently walking in the destruction of the prison. He looked at his handiwork. The attack wasn't intended on blowing up all the prison. As Madara walked down the halls he saw up ahead a group of 4 soldiers that had their rifles ready to shoot. Prisoner number 963. Stand down now and head back to your cell, otherwise we will shoot, cried a soldier. You could see that he was shaking in his boots just looking at Madara. The ancient Uchiha stood there and smirked. So, you believe you could stop me? I would love to see you try, he said before running straight forward and killing 2 of the soldiers by slamming their heads down on the white tiles and cracking them open. By doing so it made crack webs. Wah! Cried a soldier and shot at Madara, hoping to kill the man, but instead shot his own teammate. Wait, Wilson! Cried the man. He tried to grab his friend from falling and dying but was pierced in the head by a black rod that stuck him in the ground. His blood filled the cracks. This is the power of Atlas military. I expected more since you were able to hold me in my cell for so long, said Madara before walking off. As he reached an open hole in the wall he could see airships flying towards him and a few snipers aimed at him. Madara Uchiha, stand down, yelled one of the airships with a minigun aimed at him. The Uchiha stared at the airship and looked at the snipers that were pitched around the open area, one behind a water barrel, one atop the prisoner cell tower and 2 right above him. This was going to be challenging without his right eye. Rising his hands slowly, Madara stood there for a second and then produced 2 black roods from his palm and shot them upwards towards the snipers. They got hit and fell. The shock shared by the soldiers was gone after 3 seconds and they opened fire. But 3 seconds was all Madara needed. When they shot, Madara jumped up and grabbed both the bodies and used them as meat shields. Luckily the snipers had armor to block the shots fired from the airship minigun. The ancient Uchiha quickly jumped back into the hole within the prison and hid behind a wall. He had to somehow make it like they caught him with difficult, otherwise they could suspect him. He decided to quickly run out and run towards one of the gates. The airship saw him run out and yelled on the shared communication. We got a runner. The pilot screamed and fired a few shots at Madara. Now time for a surprise, thought Madara before activating his Mangekyo Sharingan in his left eye. One sniper shot at him with a dart with a sleeping sedative to knock out 10 full-grown men. With his Sharingan, he saw this coming but kept running to keep up the act. The dart hit his left leg and made it limp, resulting in him to trip and slide across the debris-covered prison courtyard. He picked himself up and pulled out the dart and throwing it away. With his left leg disabled it would look like they hit a good strike. Now all I need to do is a little trying and then make my way to the gates to get captured, thought Madara while dodging gunfire. The old man limped his way to the gates and flared his aura. Limbo. Shadow pull, yelled Madara while pointing his arm to the massive gate. To every soldier who was watching, this was terrifying. The mere fact he pulled the door apart without even trying scared them. It was like he was God. Madara started to sprint towards the now destroyed gate. He jumped over pieces of the tower that had fallen to escape. As he almost made it, he saw up ahead a person standing there glaring at him. Looking at his appearance, he was an Atlas soldier. This man wore the Atlas armor but with the helmet open to show his eyes, the Sharingan, under which were long, pronounced tear troughs. He had jet black hair that was pulled back in a low ponytail and his face was framed with center-parted bangs that extended to his chin. Madara came to a stop and stared back to the Uchiha. Judging from his aura, it was the Uchiha closest to him. Stop now, Madara, and come peacefully, said the man whose Sharingan glowed into the night. My fellow Uchiha working for a Shinee-powered military. I would say that you are working for the enemy. Why don't you work with me? Asked Madara, whose Mangekyo Sharingan glared into the man's eyes. My name is Itachi Uchiha and I can't join you for I know you are threatening the peace we have today, said Itachi as he slowly reached for his weapon, which was a tanto that sat comfortably on the left side of his left shoulder. Madara got into a fighting stance, the Uchiha's fan dance to be precise, and charged. Itachi ran forth too and unsheathed his tanto. I want to see if this Uchiha is strong. He might be useful for later, thought Madara. The older of the two Uchiha got close and engaged in battle. Madara aimed for going for Itachi's legs, so he got low and did a sweep kick to trip Itachi, but the young trained Uchiha jumped and went for a kick to Madara's face. Madara saw this coming with his Sharingan and quickly blocked his face with his wrist. The power behind the kick pushed him back a bit. A few soldiers came running by and noticed Itachi. "Guys, it's Itachi. Let's help him," one soldier said before running towards the battle. Itachi saw them coming and quickly advised them. "No, don't," he said. "You'll only get in the way. I am going to capture Madara right now, so sit back and watch." The Atlas soldiers stood there quietly and watched the battle between the two Uchiha. Madara stood up again and charged at Itachi. He had got close to Itachi and kicked at him, but Itachi blocked the attack and quickly tried to jab his tanto into Madara's chest, but the said Uchiha quickly let his other leg slip forward to fall. While descending onto his back, Madara used his leg to swung it upwards towards Itachi's chin. This sent Itachi into the air, dropping Madara's leg and tanto. As Itachi ascended, he quickly did a recovery flip to catch a sharp rod aimed for his head. The proclaimed ghost of the Uchiha clan TSKED. This brat is good. He was trained well, he thought before kneeling and picking up the dropped tanto. Itachi landed on his feet and ran forward at Madara. "I am going to have to activate my semblance," the respected Uchiha thought before slashing the rod in his hand at Madara's neck. Madara leaned back and stared into Itachi's eyes. HMPH, this child doesn't, he thought before the whole world went black. What the? It must be his semblance, thought Madara before looking around and seeing a red sky with white clouds and black water beneath him. All the damage he caused was gone and replaced with a sea of black water. Madara looked forwards and saw Itachi standing there staring at him. Everything was silent before he heard the Uchiha's voice. "This is the end for you, Madara. Now you are going back to prison, but this time with more restraints," said Itachi before disappearing and reappearing in front of him and stabbing him. "I could have saw that coming with my Sharingan, why didn't I?" thought Madara. He was answered by Itachi. "That is easy, Madara. I am God in this world. Anything that happens in this world is known by me." Madara grunted and quickly flared his aura with a roar. "H-O-G-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H-H," he yelled while powering his aura. Itachi's passive face quickly changed to shock. "What? Damn it, I am going to have to add my Mangekyo," Itachi thought with a frown and closed his eye. Madara stood there charging his aura up. He was going to escape this world and get captured, to find that young Uchiha who would carry on his mission. "Sleep among many others, Tsukuyomi," Itachi whispered before opening his eye and looked at Madara. Madara stood there for a second before he saw everything moving incredibly slowly. The clouds didn't even move from what he could see. The ripples in the water didn't appear when he moved. He felt cold inside and was taking deep breaths. Whatever Itachi did, it beat him. Outside of world of Itachi's semblance, Itachi had stood there for a second and then fell on one knee while Madara fell to the floor and slept there. Itachi clutched his left eye and looked at Madara. "I only ever decided to use that combo for when I am in real trouble," Itachi thought. The pain hurt a lot and the blood leaking out his eye was not pretty. With trouble, Itachi stood up and looked at his teammates. They were cheering on how Itachi defeated Madara. He smiled when some of them cried tears of joy but quickly frowned. "Itachi," said a voice from the crowd. It was the general. "I would like to thank you for defeating Madara. You have done a feat worth a lot of prize," he said before patting the young man on the back. Itachi replied like any other Atlas soldier. "I did what was necessary for Atlas. Excuse me, sir, but I need some rest. My eyes are hurting," Itachi asked. Ironwood smiled. This boy was the perfect weapon. "Yes, you may. You deserve it." And with that, Itachi walked away after picking up his tanto. Ironwood turned around and looked at the sleeping form of Madara. "One of your own stopped you. I hope the day you die is soon, because this world would be able to sleep in peace," thought Ironwood before calling to Ospin. With Naruto. The wind finally died down and Naruto just hung on the handle of his sword before pulling it out and falling. He used his aura to land safely. That windstorm, it was so strong. I know it must have been someone's aura causing that, but, who? The idea of someone's aura causing all that destruction was unbelievable. Shaking his head, Naruto looked at all the broken pieces of cars and bikes. A lot of money was going to be used for repairs. Naruto felt lucky that he had hid behind the pillar and not got squashed by a car. Naruto started to run back towards the building from before. When he reached the top, he looked towards the city below him and saw cars and bikes and everything that can be used for transport sat on the street and rooftops. Naruto looked at the piece of paper before lifting his head up and pulling out his scroll and looking at the city. All right, one is near the docks. One is at the abandoned factory southwest from here. Another underground in the abandoned city past the main lands that are overrun with Grim, and the last one in Vacuo, Naruto wrote down into his scroll. Naruto looked to the sky and felt at slight ease. Shisui, everyone, I am one step closer to ridding this world of the White Fang. He thought with a smile, but then jumped down. The police are going to be around and he doesn't want to be seen. Naruto awoke slowly, sunlight seeping into his blinds and illuminating his form. His eyelids slowly opened, they felt heavy and cold. He slowly reached up to his face and felt it, it was slightly damp. He must have cried last night. Scoffing, he frowned. An Uchiha never cries, no matter what they face. Naruto raised himself up, the warmth of the light motivating him. He reached for the blinds and opened them, revealing the beautiful city of Vale. The Uchiha looked down at the streets below to see many construction workers and police officers removing the debris from the storm last night. As Naruto looked at the work being done by the workers, he couldn't help but feel slightly curious at what happened last night. It must have been a tornado or something, but if Naruto had to guess, Vale wasn't the only kingdom affected by the windstorm last night. Sighing, Naruto headed toward the shower to wash up and get changed for the day. He was going to be busy tonight with the attack on the government meeting. He needed to prepare. 10 minutes later, Naruto walked outside his store and started to walk towards the government meeting building in the middle of town. Walking down the streets, the young Uchiha could see many people staring at the damage. They were slapped with surprise and many reporters were on the scene. Soon Naruto walked by a large park. It had a large playground in it for children to play on. Naruto started to get slightly jealous. He wished for a childhood like most children, a loving family, a pet dog, and friends. But no, he had his entire family killed in a White Fang raid. Naruto shook his head. He could think about it later. He had to figure out some way to minimize the deaths of the councilmen tonight. They are going in with a bomb, most likely to try and take hostages. Most likely they will fly in with a bullhead. I can try and set up traps before they come, but I don't know which way, thought Naruto. Of course this wasn't going to be easy. They had technology to do a sneak attack from the sky, so he needed to somehow catch them on the ground. I can try rigging the surrounding area, but then if one of them tries to escape, the Uchiha's line of thought was interrupted by a cry. Help us! Cried some voices coming from the park. Jerking his head fast towards the cry, Naruto could see a family of Faunus be surrounded by Beowulfs. Naruto ran towards the Faunus family. Where were the police? Glancing around, Naruto saw a police car drive away. Those bastards! They're leaving this family to die, he thought in outrage. The father of the family, a normal goat Faunus, raised a stick to the Grim. PP, please, leave my family alone, he said to the Grim, which replied with a roar and got into a pouncing position. Naruto ran as fast as he could towards the family. He pulled out his sword and jumped with some force, activating his Sharingan along the way. His eyes reflected his heart, and he didn't want another child devastated to lose their family or their lives. Before the Alpha Beowulf could jump at the family, it was suddenly stabbed in the head and pushed to the floor. The family looked up to see their rescuer, who had black hair with red eyes. Run, go now, yelled the Uchiha. The family ran past him, glancing back at their rescuer, hoping for his victory. Naruto glared at the Beowulfs and raised his sword, which was held backwards. The dumb beasts would die today. One of the Beowulfs jumped at him in anger with its claws raised. He predicted it would try and slash him across the chest. Using this theory, Naruto leaned back and waited for the claw of the Grim to descend. The Sharingan's prediction was correct, and Naruto found the Grim wide open. Using this move, he decapitated the Beowulf and saw the other two charge. Naruto held his hand out to his side and summoned his flames of hatred into a flame sword. The dual-wielding Uchiha charged at the Beowulfs and leapt forward along with the two Beowulfs. Naruto turned his body in the air and started to spin, making himself a makeshift buzzsaw. The two Grimm didn't have time to react and were suddenly decapitated. The bodies stood there for a second and then fell to the ground. Naruto stopped spinning and released his flame sword and put back his Konoha back in his scabbard. Releasing a sigh, he turned to the family to see if they were okay, but was only looked in fear. The family looked into his eyes and saw his Sharingan. It scared the children and the two adults with how different it was. Naruto noticed their fear and tried to convince them by getting a little closer. Wait. He didn't say anymore when the family got defensive and the two adults held their children close. The Uchiha looked down and started to walk away from the park. He felt sad and angry at how he just saved their lives, and this was the thanks he got. It was hypocritical how they judged him. Moving his feelings to the back of his mind, Naruto kept walking to the government building while thinking of ways to set up for them. While he kept walking in the town, he walked past a shop that had a loud conversation coming from it. I told you that this scope can see past mountains to the point where you could see Grimm nests from afar and they can't see you, cried the shopkeeper. It was a man with brown hair and brown eyes. He wore a simple gray t-shirt. The customer didn't seem very interested. Look, I am not interested. Now answer me. How much is 10 shards of dust? Said the younger man. He had black hair that was spiky, which slightly covered his left eye. He wore a black cloak which was high-collared. His clothes underneath of that was a black long-sleeve shirt, and matching pants with sports tape wrapped around his ankles with black sandals. The store employee replied, "It's 13 lean each shard. With the Schnee Dust Company constantly losing their supply of dust, it's getting harder to get some more," he said. The cloaked man in black just put 130 lean on the counter and took his box of dust. Naruto observed this the whole time and just stared at the telescope. A long-range attack. That's it? Thought Naruto. Revelation. He could snipe the White Fang members. Before Naruto could run for the closest gun store, he was grabbed by the shoulder and turned to face the man from before. The two black eyes met. "Sir, it would be great if you could let go of me," Naruto said, frowning. The man replied, "No, Naruto, I won't, not after I have finally found you," he said, looking into Naruto's eyes. If Naruto had to be honest, he would love to punch this guy considering how rude he was. "Let go of me, now," he said with a glare. This was getting on his nerves and he needed to prepare for the attack on the council, not chit-chat with a stranger. The man sighed and let go before turning and showing the back of his shirt underneath his cloak. There lay the Uchiha family crest. Naruto's eyes widened and come to the realization that this was an Uchiha survivor. "Why, you're an Uchiha?" Naruto stuttered. His prayer had been finally answered. He had a family member alive. The cloaked man faced Naruto and smiled. "Yes, I am. I am glad we could oof." He was tackled into a hug. He hugged back and looked to see Naruto crying his eyes out. "And an Uchiha survived. I don't know how long I have been wishing this was true." Naruto cried, hugging the Uchiha like he was going to disappear. The younger man smirked. "Well, I am not the only one. My daughter is coming around," said the man, thinking of his unborn child. Naruto squeezed tighter at that news. The Uchiha were making a revival and could finally start again. The crying Uchiha wiped his tears and got off the cloaked male. "So, Sniff, what's your name?" he said. "Sasuke." "Sasuke Uchiha." Sasuke said. Naruto thought of what he said and realized there were more Uchiha out in the world. He shakes his head before asking the big question. "Where are they? Are they here in Vale?" he asked desperately. Sasuke looked down a little. "No, my older brother is in Atlas while another one, I don't know where he is but I know he is alive," he said. Naruto nodded. That was all he needed to hear. He would find them and protect them with his life if needed. Sasuke had a thought come to his head. "Why don't you come with me and meet my wife?" he said. Sasuke was sure his wife would love to meet Naruto. Naruto nodded and was about to follow but then remembered his reason for coming out to town. "Sasuke, I am sorry but I can't right now. I am on a mission to end the White Fang and to avenge the Uchiha," he said with his fists tightened up at the thought of the White Fang. Sasuke stopped walking and stood there with his back facing Naruto. "You know, the White Fang are dangerous and trying to rid the world of humans, right? I would suggest letting it go," said Sasuke. He was speaking from experience. Naruto frowned and growled. "Let it go? Let it go? Don't you remember that they attacked our clan? And slaughtered them? Are you going to just let it go? Said Naruto. He couldn't stand people telling him to let go of his anger, but an Uchiha letting it go was basically saying, "Nah, I was okay with it," to Naruto. The cloaked Uchiha just sighed. I used to be the same Naruto but realized that it's foolish vengeance, it turns you into something you're not, he said before looking at Naruto with his 3-tomo Sharingan. Naruto's Sharingan subconsciously turned on to glare back. I can't believe you, Sasuke, letting those scumbags run free after killing our family? I won't accept it, he said before walking off. Sasuke gazed at Naruto's retreating form and sighed. Later, the sun had set and Naruto only had 2 hours before starting his mission. He had set himself up at a building far enough away to get good shots with his sniper rifle and not be spotted. Naruto stood atop the said building and reloaded his sniper with rubber bullets that could pierce aura if activated. He didn't want to kill the White Fang members as they have intel on other locations than the ones Naruto had, so rubber bullets were his only option. The Uchiha had went to a customization shop for new attire. He got rid of the simple cloak and skeleton helmet. Now sat on his head a proper helmet that covered his entire head, and the face of the mask was a tactical visor that could withstand bullets and gave him notifications of things like calls. His torso was covered by armor that was pitch black and was covering most parts of torso, and under it was a layer of breathable leather shirt. What sat around his waist was a holster that held a simple pistol at his hip, and on his back was his sword. His pants consisted of rough black pants that wasn't easily teared, and his shins were covered as well. Naruto's attire was finished off by black boots laced up. Altogether it wasn't cheap, and Naruto knew he had to get some more lean soon. After reloading his sniper, he had sat down and waited till the meeting between council members started. He pushed a button on his helmet which would alert him when it would start. Naruto closed his eyes and took a big sigh. He still felt a little angry on what Sasuke had said before and just couldn't get past it. How could Sasuke not want revenge on those Faunus scumbags for murdering their entire family? He was also thinking of ways to get to meet the other Uchiha and see if they had been teaching people the fan dance. His helmet started to beep and his eyes shot open. Turning his body, Naruto lay on the floor of the cold roof and watched the council meeting from afar. Within the council meeting, sitting around a round table, were important figures of Vale, one of which was Ozpin, head of Beacon. He sat quietly sipping some coffee that was handed to him. He knew there was going to be an attack on the meeting but had a theory that a certain someone already had them covered, so he kept his mouth shut. As one last man came into the room and took his place around the round table that had cooling vents under it, the head of the council, Amethyst, took her seat and declared the start of the meeting. All right, the council session is in order. Let us begin by discussing the requests we have had recently, she said. They always got letters and requests done first before getting political and looking into petitions. One man held his hand up which asked for permission to speak, which Amethyst nodded to. I have a request from a community who owns an orphanage about keeping Faunus children out of the facility, the man said. Many thought to themselves about it before Amethyst raised her hand and followed the next step. We will have the first debate of tonight discussing this topic. Begin, she said, and watched everyone give their opinions. I believe we should keep the Faunus. They are only children and need protection, said a man. Those filthy animals should know their place and get lost, said a racist woman. No, Aqua, they are not filthy animals, they are people we should give respect to, argued another woman. The Faunus should be treated as the same as us humans. The only difference is an animal part. What part is that monstrous? Asked a man with a quiet voice. Ozpin voiced his opinion. I believe that the children should be kept in safety with other orphans and are well educated. Beacon will even pay for accommodations, he said before taking a sip of his coffee. His announcement got most people to agree with him. Everyone's opinion was being thrown around the place, and eventually it was decided that the orphanage should allow Faunus children. Next topic, the paying of. She was cut off by the shaking of the building and the lights flickering. Everyone looked around and wondered what happened. Earthquake? Asked a councilman. With Naruto, Naruto saw the airship land roughly on the roof. Mission has begun, he thought before turning on his Sharingan. He aimed his scope into the council room and waited for the action. Back with the councilman, everyone was tense and was worried. Was it an attack? Or a natural disaster? Most people were getting out of their chairs to leave, but the guard flying out the door said otherwise. And coming in the door was a large man. He was incredibly muscular. He had dark brown hair and wore a grim mask to cover his face. This man wore the normal white fang clothing but had it accustomed to his size. On his back was a large sickle. Next to him came in 17 other lackeys of his holding Atlas military rifles. The large man spoke. "This is hostile takeover. Nobody move," cried the man bringing the sickle out. Everyone now held hostage got on their knees with their hands behind their heads. Ospin followed their example. One of the members took away his cane. The musclier man pointed to the front of the large window showing the city of Vale. The lackey quickly set up the camera and turned it on. With the camera on, the large man sat in the head of the council's chair and started his live broadcast. "Hello humans of Vale, my name is Grullo and we have taken the council as hostages. If you do not listen to our demands, people will die," he said with a lackey dragging a woman to his feet and sat her there. He raised his sickle and was going to cut the woman's head off, but suddenly he saw two of his team fall to the floor and pass out. He looked towards the glass and saw a crack hole in it that signaled a sniper bullet. His eyes widened and saw more of his lackeys drop to the floor, leaving only 6 left of his team and him. With frustration, he knocked over the large round table and it gave him cover from the window and the camera. With Naruto, TCH, "Looks like I am going to have to go there myself and take them out," he said, leaving his sniper rifle on the floor of the rooftop. He jumped to the other roofs below him. When he landed, he jumped forward towards the large tower building by pouncing from water tanks to air vents. He was in a rush because if he wasn't fast enough they would start killing. As he landed on a street pole which shook a little from his landing, he glanced up and saw a broken window leading to the inside, so he quickly pushed his legs off the lamppost and jumped into the window. When he got inside, he looked around and saw 5 security guards tense up and get into a fighting pose. "It's an intruder. Get him," they said. Those words sequenced Naruto's battle with them. One of them rushed him and tried punching him across the face. He leaned to his left and wrapped his left arm around the guard's arm before tripping him. While the man descended, Naruto let his go of the arm and punched him to the ground, knocking him out. 2 others came charging at him and tried punching and kicking him. With his left hand he caught a kick and with his right arm he caught the punch that was directed to his face. With some force he flipped over them and flung them into a pillar before landing on his feet. The other 2 grabbed 2 electric batons and charged Naruto with the weapons. The first one went for a strike to the stomach at Naruto, while the other one would be close to strike him as well if the first strike failed. However, they didn't predict Naruto disarming the first guy and using him as shield. The man howled in pain and was let go to fall to the floor. The other security guard quickly jerked back his arm and tried to jab Naruto again but was disarmed and kicked away into a trash bin. The masked Uchiha looked towards an air vent above him. Naruto jumped up and broke the gate of the vents and crawled his way to the meeting room. His planning before involved him learning the layout of the building, so he knew his way around. Naruto crawled around the vents before reaching the meeting room. He listened to anything they had to say. "I say we kill these filthy humans right now, boss. We are only down to us and they aren't going to let us see the daylight if we stick around too long," said a lackey to Grullo. Grullo hummed for a moment before answering. "I know, but we also want them to listen to our demands. The boss didn't want us to just kill them, otherwise he would have sent a larger force of people," the large man said and went into a thinking position before coming up with an idea. Grullo stood up. "We can kill one now and see if they listen. Get the camera if you can and watch out for the sniper," he said. The others agreed and quickly moved the table to grab the camera. They set it up again and dragged Ospin to the front of the camera. The said man didn't look all that worried. The large white fang member glared down at Ospin and raised his sickle before giving the coffee drinker the chance for final words. "Last words? Since you're the principal of that stupid academy, why don't you give your students some last words before you die?" he said smugly. Ospin sighed. "All right, if you insist, students who are watching, I am not going to die," he said and then smiled. Grullo wondered what he was talking about but found out the moment he was cut across the hip by Naruto springing out of the vents, shocking everyone in the room except Ospin. Grullo stood in shock and tumbled back, holding his hip, trying to cover the wound which was pouring out blood. The armored Uchiha quickly flung himself quickly to a lackey and hitting him in the face with his elbow. He used his speed with the help of the Sharingan to grab the now knocked out man and flung him at another member of the White Fang who just so happened to drop Ospin's cane, which rolled to the man. Naruto was going to go for another 2 people but was being held at gunpoint. He quickly grabbed his sword of his back and charged his aura. They shot at him expecting him to be filled with lead, but a black fire wave was shot from his blade and was headed towards them that blocked the bullets midway. Before the two could reload, Naruto appeared in front of them. He used the bottom of his sword and knocked out one of them by smashing it against the White Fang member's face before withdrawing his pistol and shooting the man next to him in the forehead, making him fall to the floor knocked out. The Uchiha turned towards Grullo and glanced at him. "Surrender now. It would make it easier carrying you and your friends to the bullhead," said Naruto, holding his blade towards the large man. Grullo wasn't very happy. He was so close to a victory for the White Fang, but this armored child ruined it. The man let go of his wound and roared his emotions. "I won't let you stand in our..." His roar shook the building and his aura flared. It was a light lime color and it surrounded him. Naruto turned to Ozpin. "Ozpin, I will handle this. You take the hostages out and get out of here," he said before facing his opponent again. This would be his hardest fight yet. The principal of Beacon was untying the last hostage and then said, "Fine, but do come out of this alive," he said before running off with the other hostages. Grullo calmed down slightly and asked Naruto, "All right, boy. I have had enough of you and am going to kill you first with my semblance," he said before his body mass got larger. Now his muscles were so large that his torso clothing was ripped off during his transformation. Naruto ran towards Grullo with his sword in hand. The end. Now we will see you in the next video.